Hello and welcome to the Ancient Art of Fishing channel. We are going to get back to fishing adventures very soon this week. I actually have an episode ready at the Crawfish, but we want to talk about the master list of fishing spots. Uh, Basically, we want to talk about the master place of fishing spots. We're going to give you a huge list. There's over 150 spots. Now, if you haven't seen my previous video, we are going to talk a little bit about those spots, but we won't cover them in detail. If you want to see my first video that I did 2 years ago about fishing spots, there's about 15, 16 spots in there. I will pin that in the description, in the comments. Actually, I'll pin that in the comments so you can get that. I also won't be going over too many bass ponds around Madison because I made a video about that too. I will also pin that in the comments. Also, I will pin an overall master list including all those spots basically and all these spots as soon as I make a text version of that on one of my websites, and that will also be pinned in the comments. So check out the first pinned comment for all this information. But let's go over, because we got over 150 spots, over 3 pages of basically spots that I really, really would like to mention. And we're going to do this by river system because there's so many of them. So here we go. Let's actually start right now. Before we start, like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button if you want Madison, St. Louis area, kind of fishing adventures and reports. If there's someone you'd like me to fish within an hour of Madison, let me know. I might actually fish it. Let's just start with the Madison chain. And we're actually going to start with Lakeview Park. This is one of the ponds I did actually mention. There's some bass in there, crappie in there, and there's an infinite amount of 4-inch bluegills in there. I believe this is actually connected to Lake Mendota either by this creek or by underground pipes, so that it might actually be a viable bait place for catfish for Lake Mendota. Let's go over to Marshall Park. We mentioned this last time as well. There's bass in this lagoon here, and on some nights there's walleye coming out here. I have caught catfish. What you do for catfish is you take cut bait, you walk out on this pier, and you toss it as far as you can out into the abyss over here. Marshall actually stays very, very shallow a long ways out, so you'll have to wait until after nightfall, but I've caught some nice gato fish there. The next one, we're going to move up Pheasant Branch Creek, the outlet right here. I have caught catfish on this side of the creek. This side facing the lake here, that's private property. You can't actually fish that. But I have caught smallmouth back here on this creek area. There's definitely freshwater drum. I've caught pike here as well. And I've seen a muskie there, although I didn't actually catch it. For catfish, you just kind of toss under the bridge with either cut bait or worms, and you are golden. Moving on from Pheasant Branch Creek, you got to go to Mendota County Park, which is just basically up the road here. Mendota County Park. And basically this channel has bass and bluegills, and then if you toss out here, there's some pike and some catfish at night. People are camping here, so that place might be taken in the summer, and later in the summer, it kind of gets eutrophic and smells kind of bad. So you might want to avoid that. Later up the road, you have the 6 Mile Creek area, and essentially the 6 Mile Creek area, it's kind of like this area where the 6 Mile Creek crosses County Road M, and there's a couple of slots on this side. The slots facing the creek are a little bit better than the slots facing the lake. You can fish from the boardwalk, but it is a long way down, so if you catch a big fish, you might be sort of screwed. But there are walleye there. There's definitely drum there. Sometimes you can catch catfish there. There's pike, and depending on the time of the year, there is white bass as well. But the basically the side facing the boardwalk, a lot of it is overgrown, so you do risk getting ticks. But I have caught a decent fish there. Going back a little bit, you have Governor Nelson's State Park. And basically on Governor Nelson, there's 2 main places I like to fish. There are these docks, and you can catch some smallmouth bass here. But I actually like this long pier going out into the lake. This pier going out of the lake is good as well. This surrounds the swimming area. But I basically go out in the tip of the long lake and then launch out both in all directions with my cut bait as far as possible, and I've caught pretty good catfish there. There are also some small largemouth and smallmouth bass as well around here. So Governor Nelson's State Park. And then you have to go to the top side of Madison, and then you have this 113 bridge area. Obviously, you can also fish from skipper buds on Westport Road. Some people do that, but generally, if you fish on the part facing Cherokee Marsh, you will actually find bass, turtles, and pike over here. Facing this pool in the railroad bridge, you will find big gato fish, and I have caught walleye and I've caught both walleye and pike in this deep pool as well. But generally, like facing the railroad bridge from 113, you will get lots of gato fish. Let's actually just mention Cherokee Park over here. A lot of it's basically pike, bullheads, and bass here. But Cherokee Park, very very good place to fish early in the season. It gets way too overgrown later in the season for me to fish at all. And then we have to move on to Governor's Island, the island for future governors, either by democratic vote or military conquest. There's many places to fish on Governor's Island. There's like this little cave place here up on the parkway around here, and there's like places you can cast out. My favorite place is actually over here with these rocks here. You can take a little trail over here and get all the way here and just cast off the rocks. Now, Governor's Island is weird because it closes at 8 o'clock, so it's really not that great. And there's not that many fish there, like I would say till from late May until like essentially later in September. But once later in September comes going into October, and it gets dark a little earlier around dusk, like there's walleye that come around dusk. There's gato fish galore out here. And there's also a lot of bass hanging around here, but that's much later in the season. So Governor's Island's basically like good after ice out, and also good like later in the season before it gets too cold. Then going on from Governor's Island, you have you can actually fish off the side branch here. That's pretty good too. You also have the Warner Park boat launch here, and you fish off the breakwater. A lot of times there is catfish in here, but I've also caught walleyes and rock bass. And in the actual like the protected area, there is pike, and there's like these weird bait fish. I think they're like ciscos or something. I'm not really sure. But anyways, like there's a lot of good fish on Warner Park boat launch. Let's actually move on to Maple Bluff. Maple Bluff only has a couple of places that you can actually fish. Beach Park is one of them. This is actually like a public area, Beach Park. You can actually fish here. Not really sure if the locals will kick you out because it is kind of like a rich neighborhood. I don't know if they'll kick you out after dark. I don't know if they can. I really wouldn't want to fight with them. I think this place closes at 10 anyways, but Beach Park is somewhere where you can actually fish at Maple Bluff. And then after that, also Burroughs Park, you can actually fish as well. There's like a parking spot there. And you can actually, I'm pretty sure you can actually fish off this like ramp here at Burroughs Park. That's also kind of like a public area. And then you get to Tenney Park and Beach. And you can actually fish in the lagoon. The lagoon, the pipe area has crappie dusk. And obviously some people fish for bass in here. There's large carp in here. And there's also some gato-ish fish in here as well at times. I have seen catfish in there. I just haven't really caught any catfish from Tenney Lagoon. Also, I actually like to fish off the breakwater, and I have caught many catfish and walleye off the breakwater. So that's Tenney Park. And then later on, you have James Madison Park. Now, James Madison Park isn't bad for gato fish, in the summer, later in the summer. There's a lot of people playing there, but there's very few people fishing there. It is very, very shallow off the... It is actually pretty shallow in James Madison Park. You might want to, put on some swimming shoes, wade into the water, and cast out a little bit. But James Madison Park is another possible place. And then you get to campus. A lot of people fish off campus. Basically right in front of the Union. Like these piers. These piers actually do provide for pretty good fishing. They are really good, late October and early November when there's not a lot of people outside at night. There's a lot of good walleye fishing. There's a lot of good gato fishing off these piers. It gets dark much, much earlier then. So I would actually look into that. Like, get on one of these piers and toss out as far as possible. And like later in the season when it gets cold, when there's not too many people like out enjoying the lake, because in the summer it's like completely full, like it's just weird fishing there. And right in front of the Memorial Union, pretty good place for a good gato fish and walleye later in the season. And then like all along Lakeshore Path, you can kind of like fish. University Bay, there's several places, including where like this bridge area, I believe. And I don't exactly know where the bridge area is on Lakeshore Path, but there is a bridge area where like this like little creek comes out into the lake. I think it's here because that's the creek. Yeah, there's a little bridge area. There's like a spot right there. There's pretty large carp that and some good bass early in the season, but like all year round, there's pretty large carp that kind of swim around here. Kind of tough to catch them, but you can catch them. Now let's actually go to Picnic Point, all the freaking way out here. This is actually really good early season for catfish. Just like go on the very, very point, toss all the way out. There are some pretty big catfish right after ice out around here. And generally there'll be a lot of people enjoying the view, but realistically, like early in the season, there's not going to be too many people fishing there. Also, we're going to go to Second Point, or called Fratuski's Point or whatever. And there is actually like a little area here where you can set up and fish. It's pretty good late in the season. You'll get some bullheads, you'll get some catfish, you'll get some smallmouth bass, and also largemouth bass around that particular point. And of course, one place where I don't see a lot of people fish is Raymer's Cove. And the only place you can fish around Raymer's Cove, there's a parking lot right there, by the way. The only place you can really fish around Raymer's Cove is actually Sunset. There is smallies there are bullheads there. I haven't caught a catfish there yet, but I'm sure they're there as well. And it's really one of the nicest sunset spots in all of Madison. So Raymer's Cove. And this video is going to be really, really long because, like I said, over 150 fishing locations. And of course, after that, we want to go to James Madison. We want to go to Lake Monona, because that's pretty much, we circled Mendota. And we're going to go to Olin Park. Now, I don't know the other lakes nearly as well as Mendota, but I do know Olin Park. There's a lot of bluegills there. There's drum there, and there's bass there. Monona is more known for its muskies more than the catfish. There's very few catfish in Monona. There are some, but very few. And of course, like over here, across from here, you have like the Triangles area around Britain and Boats. A lot of good pan fishing around here, and people do muskie fish around here as well. You also have Monona Terrace, and a lot of people go there for pan fishing. Monona Terrace is actually on John Nolan Road. You can fish off the wall here, and there's a couple of fishing docks here. It is really, really crowded, especially on the weekends and like weekday nights, so you will want to get there early to stake out a spot. But people can fish for bass there, they fish for panfish there, and there's also muskie around that area, and it does drop off pretty deep right away on Monona Terrace. There's also like the Aldrich Park breakwater area. And, I've seen people catch like basically like this pier. People fish off this pier. There's definitely panfish there. There's bowfin there. And people do catch like muskies and also bass there. But it is pretty heavily fished. So want to be aware of that. Also, the creek is pretty good as well. Starkwater Creek. There's some good bass and other fish in there as well. So then we move on to Lake Wingara or Lake Wingra. Wingra Dam and Wingra Creek is always pretty good. And you can actually just kind of like park at the zoo area and then follow like fish either the dam or like the creek. Early season, very, very good muskie action there. And also pretty decent bass there. There's a lot of bass in Wingra just along this park as well. And of course at the Wingra Boats area, you can just go back here and there's definitely like a bass hiding around the lily pads in the lagoons as well. So that is Lake Wingra. Let's go on to Lake Waubesa. Lake Waubesa, you have McDaniels Park, which is actually pretty good. This is along the lower Yahara Trail. There is like a fishing ramp here, and this is actually kind of like where it goes under the bridge. There's largemouth, there's northerns there, there's white bass there at some point in the year, I think like mid-June, I think. There's like white bass there. And it's just overall a pretty good fishing area for game fish, if you really like that, which I do at times. And then after that, there's Babcock on the other side of Waubesa, and this is kind of like where Waubesa is pretty much draining into Mud Lake and eventually Kegonsa. So basically, at the Babcock Park, there's a little bit of a dam over here, and there, like a lot of times, there is like a big muskie in that dam. If you haven't seen the video, my friend and I actually caught one, like a 50-incher here when we actually went. He actually caught it, and using just a really really small lure. There's a fishing dock there. There's tons of panfish there, and there's bass there as well. I think someone did catch a flathead here once, but in the 30 years of records, there's been like one, so I wouldn't count on catching a catfish there. But yeah, Babcock's pretty good. And then you have Jaeger Park. You can actually fish here as well. And of course, we got to mention Fish Camp County Park. A lot of people fish here. This is not one of my favorite parts to fish, but in the shallow water, you can actually get some bluegills. I have caught a bass here as well at Fish Camp County Park. There is also, obviously, this little bridge area here, and I definitely have caught walleye here as well. I think there's probably catfish here, but I have never actually tried to catch catfish here. Rock bass and walleye, though, there's a lot of those around this AB County Bridge area from Fish Camp. You can just park on the road as well. So basically, after that, you get to Lake Kegonsa State Park. I honestly like Lake Kegonsa State Park. Realistically, it's not like my favorite place to fish, but there are a lot of places along the lake. The restroom and boathouse, I would just probably fish from the beach area here. And like there's a lot of good panfish here, honestly, and you can probably catch some bass there as well from Lake Kegonsa State Park. And then you go to the Lock and Dam, Kegonsa Lock and Dam. And this is actually a decent place. There's catfish here, there's white bass here, there's largemouth bass here, and there's northern pike here. A lot of people fish here later in the season. There's a lot of good flowing water here, so it's oxygenated and people do want to fish there. It can get pretty crowded there, though, because it is very, very close to town. It is actually very, very close to town, and it can get really, really crowded at Kegonsa Dam. You can also fish at La Follette. On Kegonsa, I probably just don't for the most part, but it is a decent fishing place on Kegonsa at La Follette. Going down the Yahara River, after the Madison chain, you come to Viking County Park. Now, Viking County Park I've seen people catch catfish there, but generally it's a pike and bass place, and also a panfish place, and it is really great for ice fishing season. Viking County Park, like the lagoons here, they freeze, there's a lot of fish in there, and you can actually get a lot of fish in there as well. So, Viking County Park. Essentially, I want to talk a small bit about Stoughton Dam. Essentially, Riverside Park's Stoughton Dam. There's a bunch of like bridges that cross Stoughton as well, and there's decent amount of there's actually a decent amount of action like at Yahara River Trail Walking Bridge. A lot of carp there, pike there as well. But here you have basically Riverside Drive Park on Stoughton Mill Pond. Now, I think they're going to take out the dam sometime, so this might actually change very, very soon. But there's a lot of big carp in the mill pond if you fish like right above the mill pond. Caught some carp, caught some pike. Also, have caught a smallie or two. And I've seen catfish being pulled up from underneath the dam as well. Also, I've pulled up couple of bass actually from this like still water here. There's some pike here as well. I've also pulled up a catfish from over here. So the Stoughton Dam area is good as long as they don't take the dam out, which I think they will in the next couple of years. Now, going down from Stoughton, a place that's better than Stoughton is actually Dunkirk Dam. Dunkirk is essentially a couple of miles from Stoughton. A lot of people like to fish kind of like, here. If you have to actually have access to a house back here to actually get underneath the dam, or you have to jump walk across the Yahara River, which you can because it's really shallow here. Some people jump the fence. Don't do that. That's not legal to fish under the main dam. But there is a public access spot like right here, actually. There's a pretty good public access spot right here that you can fish. I think it's a little snaggy, but there are catfish here. There are sometimes even muskie there and other game fish there as well. I actually like to fish early and late in the season at the park, and there are big channel catfish and pike here on the park. I think like in April and in November, like April, early May, and in like later in October and into like early November, I think this is a really good fishing area for the channel fish and also pike as well when it's actually open season for pike. After Dunkirk, realistically, there's not a lot on the Yahara that's like open access. Like after Dunkirk, there's a couple of bridge crossings which you can fish in. There's like this Yahara river access area where you can actually fish from. You just turn in there. It's crossing like the Yahara River access area on Route 59, on Highway 59. You can actually access this place. Might be a little overgrown in the summer. Pull out here and essentially access and fish here on that bridge. And of course, downstream there's Fulton and then there's Merwin Park. There's several parking spots on Merwin. This is very close to the rock confluence. There's pike here. There's catfish here. I haven't seen a flathead being pulled out of here yet because the Yahara remains a very small river all the way down onto its confluence of the rock. But that's going to be the last place we talk about on the Yahara, Merwin Park. So let's actually go to the Sugar River. So Sugar River starts off near Verona, but we're actually going to talk about Mount Vernon and Donald County Park because Donald County Park is the place where Mount Vernon Creek actually starts. So essentially where Deer Creek becomes Mount Vernon Creek, there's like a hiking path. Deer Creek actually joins another creek, essentially like becoming Mount Vernon Creek. That confluence area, confluence area, you would park at Popsicle. Where this actually happens around here, there is like kind of a spot you can fish here early in the season. There's a lot of trout there. So like Donald County Park, where Deer Creek joins another creek to become Mount Vernon Creek, where this kind of like path here, like this, I would say like this area right here and this area right here. See like how this creek, Friars Creek and Deer Creek join together to form Mount Vernon Creek. That is an excellent trout fishing area. Of course, like, you know, there's other trout fishing areas around Mount Vernon Creek, including Mount Vernon Creek Fishery and Wildlife Area. That's also quite good. And of course, the Forest of Fame Park down here around Mount Vernon and around the tap area. People actually catch fish around there as well. Of course, like then you get into like more like Pioli and stuff on the actual river. The Fox Wells area, that's a very good area to actually catch trout in. I talked about that in my previous video, so we're not going to go into that. And then you go to Belleville, the lands of Belleville. We talked about Belleville last time, so we're not going to talk about the Sugar River Park Pike area. You can watch my other video for that. I want to talk a little bit about the Belleville Community Park. Lake Bellevue generally kind of sucks for fishing most of the time, but like very late spring, early summer, maybe like May or something, like during a 1 or 2 week period of time behind the outhouse, there's a little pipe that comes out. There's some good bass and crappie there if you can catch it at the right time. Usually you can't, so it kind of sucks. I don't really fish Bellevue that much, but sometimes during that week I'll go there. Also, like here on the trail where the river bends, very early in the season, like March, I would say, there's really good carp and sucker action here. You don't want to use leaders. You really don't want to use leaders. That's the one of the few times I don't actually use leaders when fishing because they are like kind of like leader shy early in the season. Later in the season, they don't really care. They'll bite anything. But early in the season, they're kind of leader shy in this like bend area for carp and suckers. The dam itself, I haven't had too much luck at the dam ever since they fixed the dam. I mean, they did actually fix it. Like at this point, like the dam like floods this entire area now because they actually fixed it and the river's actually quite a bit wider above the dam. I haven't had too much luck fishing this area since then, but there at least used to be like, you know, pike, bass, and I've still caught bluegills and bullheads here, but I don't really care about bluegills and bullheads. If early in the season, like maybe late March, early April, if you can toss kind of like in this this rushing stream area, you will be able to catch trout and suckers as well. I've caught brook trout, brown trout, and a lot of suckers here. And generally, like during the sucker run, you could literally see the suckers jumping, kind of like trying to jump the dam and failing to jump the dam. So there it is on the Sugar River. We've talked about like Sugar River Park downstream, this bridge here, how that's actually good for pike. Moving down from Belleville, we go down to Dayton. on Exeter Park. Now you can catch, this is a really good pike area. I've caught several pike under the bridge here. You can fish along this entire side. There's pike there, and there's a lot of suckers there as well, and carp later, like when you get into late spring and summer. So pike, suckers, carp here on this Dayton area. From Dayton area, there is like one sort of accessy area in the Albany Wildlife area, but it's really not that good. So if you really want to fish the sugar, you have to go all the way down essentially to Albany. I have fished the wildlife area. It's not great. There's like a couple of like accesses here, but it's really not that great. There's also that cave, which isn't really that great either. But Albany is the next place I would actually stop. American Legion Park, there are suckers, carp, and pike. There is kind of like a platform that you launch off of. Now, the thing about this park is like it's very shallow on the side facing the park. The deep channel's on the other side, so if you're fishing for pike, you want to launch all the way on the other side. There is like a platform here right above the dam, and you can actually catch pike from this area as well. Of course, underneath the dam, there's catfish. Generally, like where catfish become plentiful is like essentially like downward from Albany Dam and onward, but there's some big catfish like beneath the dam. But Albany Dam is probably the busiest of the major dams on the Albany Dam is probably the busiest dam on the sugar because it's right smack dab in the middle of town. It's not the biggest one. Decatur's bigger, but Albany Dam is probably the busiest one because it's in downtown. And beneath the dam, there's a lot of really good smallie fishing, and there's gato fish there as well. You can also fish kind of like at Bowman Park, but it's really hard kind of like set up here, and you might actually lose your pole because there isn't anywhere to stick a stake in the ground. Generally, like most of this other Sugar River stuff is private property. There are places where people allow you to fish, but I wouldn't really make a habit of it. Minnehaha Campground is private. You have to rent to actually fish there. And then from Albany, you basically get to Decatur Park and Dam. Below the dam, there's like catfish, there's drum, there's smallies, and sometimes there's panfish. I did mention this like outlet. It's pretty good for bass and stuff, but the weird thing about that is like it's really good at like once or twice during the year, like in the spring right after the season opener. And also that 1 week in November where it gets warm. That's actually the best time to go. That 1 week in November where it actually gets warm. I catch a lot of bass during that time. Heading down from here, there's Headgates Park. And, early summer, I think that's the best place to fish it. There's like bass, walleye sometimes, and definitely fish of death. And there's also some like decent bluegill around there as well. There's also this like place in the woods that like comes out around this area. There's like a little path that you actually take here. You have to go through some of the woods. And I think the place is actually here. I've done a video about this, the secret ancient ninja place here on the Little Sugar River here. And I've caught some catfish there and suckers and carp there. But not like a greatly awesome place, but a decent place nonetheless to actually fish on the sugar. So that is the secret ninja spot here. It's like over here somewhere. It doesn't really show up on the map all that well. There's also going downstream. Now, this whole stretch between Decatur and Broadhead is fishable, especially at the bridges. And I've caught fish like all along here. But some people have said like fishing off Decatur Road is pretty good. I haven't really tried fishing off Decatur Road. But there is a parking lot right here. And you can actually like fish this. Actually, no, I've caught a sucker here, but at night people say this is decent for catfish. People also have fished off of Decatur Road here. Not really sure if you can actually do that, but this river here I think is slightly wider. I'm not really sure where the heck you would park here, honestly, at night, but they've said they've caught some good catfish here. So at Decatur Road, there's like a parking lot here, like I said. Some people fish off here at night. So the next place I would look at is not like the main branch, but like the side branch. Like it actually widens out here. There's like a little bit of a still water pool right here. And there's a pull-out canoe ramp right here, the County F canoe ramp. And I've caught catfish, suckers, drum here. And there's some bass here as well. Now, the thing is, like, you can actually go under the bridge. This is actually a curated fishing spot under the bridge, and that's actually pretty good. Also, like, there's a little path that extends over here, and there's a lot of, like, structure and fallen wood here. Probably a decent place for flatheads, but you will want to watch your pole very closely because they can easily pull your pole into one of the snags. The current is pretty strong here. So if they pull you in one of the snags, you will probably not get your tackle back. But County F boat ramp, a lot of the stuff around there. Of course, after the County F boat ramp, you basically head to Broadhead Spillway. Now, below Decatur, there's flatheads. Below Broadhead Spillway, there's definitely flatheads too. Above the spillway, I've actually caught bass and suckers there as well. But below the spillway, there's channels, there's flatheads. I've caught bass there, and there's a couple of bluegill. They're kind of hard to catch. And there's like rock bass as well that you can actually use as bait. They're a bit of like mix of everything down here. It's not a great fishing spot, and it's not that heavily fished. But here, and like you can only really access around here, and maybe like one more place here, although that place is getting to be kind of crappy. Basically, like you access the area around here, you get a couple of like live baits, and then you have the other spot way behind the treatment plant. You see all these paths? You take this path, you take it like all the way up here, and here there is a giant log jam across the river here. And that's the secret spot, which I don't think anyone else actually fishes, because when I went there, there were no like fishing lines or anything or fishing tackle that I saw. So I don't think anyone really fishes this spot except for me, and I'm telling you where the spot is. There's a big log jam across the river, and I have caught channels and flatheads there. There's also giant turtles there, so you got to watch out about that. So that's where we are on the Sugar River. Yes, you can fish Clarence Thomas Bridge Park, but that place gets like so freaking low that I just don't really want to fish it most of the time. So let's actually go on to the Menesha River. So the Menesha River essentially is fishable at Marshall and a few other places. So basically, we've talked about this before, Fireman's Park, like late July, like mid-July and onwards, Fireman's Park, essentially like very, very good for catfish. Riley Depp County Park, also same thing, mid-July and onwards. Now, if you want to fish like earlier in the season, you will want to come to Charles Lueger family. Well, actually, no, you want to come to this like bird disc golf place thing. And you want to, there's like a parking lot here on Canal Road. And basically there's like this little like shallow type of thing. You want to fish where that comes into the deeper river, and there's kind of like a tree falling here. So you want to toss basically some small amounts of cut bait here, and like in April, you can catch quite a few catfish in this area. Early season catfish location on the Menesha. So like Fireman's early, Riley Depp early in the season. This Charles Wager Family Park area. Like Fireman's Riley Depp later in the season, this Charles Lueger Family Park area by the disc golf course early in the season. There's also this like place off of Box Elder Road. I don't know if I can find it here. No, here, this is like where Spring Creek feeds into Menesha. This area is private, but this area on the other side of the road is not private. There's a huge, huge log jam here, and I have caught catfish there. There are like snapping turtles there, you still have to watch out. There's catfish here, and there's pike here. So people fish this area a lot as well. So that is the Menesha River. Let's actually move on to the Pecatonica River. Now, I will say that most of the Peck River's best fishing spots are in Illinois. That's where the river gets much bigger, but there are a couple of places you can actually fish in Wisconsin. So basically, let's start at Blanchardville, because Blanchardville on the Pecatonica, you have to really go into town here because it's really hard. I mean, you can fish along this, but it's really hard to get past the growth. You can also fish off the bridge if you want, but it's a long way up. I don't think there's any huge fish on the Pecatonica at this point, though, but like fishing downstream from the dam, there's definitely some smallies and suckers here. Upstream from the dam, suckers, once again, maybe some panfish, and also some smallmouth bass as well on the Pecatonica. If you live in town, might be a pretty good place to check out, but it's really not worth driving to and fishing there. I've tried it once, caught a couple things, not that great. Argyle, on the east branch of the Pecatonica, or was it the west branch, I forget. Argyle has a dam here, and that's like below the dam is kind of where you want to fish for Argyle. If you fish kind of like below the dam at Argyle, there's a boat launch above the dam, but like if you want to fish below the dam at Argyle, like there's pike there, there's catfish there, and that's like where all the bigger fish start appearing on the Pecatonica on this like east branch or west branch or whichever branch it was on the Pecatonica River. So Argyle is another fishing spot. On the main branch of the Pecatonica, there's actually quite a few more places. Calamine on the main branch. There's essentially like flatheads here. There's channels here. I think you can pretty much fish off the Cheese County Trail. By the way, it's like in this video, I have fished most of these places that I speak of. A few of the others that I actually haven't fished, I've heard very good reports about from multiple people, not just one source. So around the Calamine area, there's a couple of road crossings that you can actually kind of fish off of, a couple of bridges, and you can actually fish the Pecatonica here. There are both channels and flatheads all the way up in Calamine, because basically like flatheads go pretty much all the way up the Pecatonica, unlike the Sugar. So that is Calamine, but what's even better than Calamine is quite a bit downstream at Darlington. Now, Black Bridge Park, sometimes I have caught catfish off the rapids here. There's also tadpole mad toms around this area, which are really good fish for bait for flatheads. Sometimes there's a couple of fallen trees. I have caught a flathead in Darlington. And basically, like Riverside Park's always pretty good. There's like places with a lot of structure, and you can just fish the Pecatonica in Darlington. It's a really good place to fish the Pecatonica. There's also Black Hawk Memorial Park way downstream, and camping spots at Black Hawk Memorial are about $5 a night, so it's not going to break the bank. But there are like really big catfish at Black Hawk Memorial Park on the Pecatonica River. So obviously you want to concentrate on the bends, but there's also a lot of carp here. So you might want to bring some bait on the Pecatonica River fishing at Black Hawk Memorial Park. Essentially, downward from Black Hawk Memorial Park, there's also kind of like a pull-out place here that you actually might be able to fish on County Road M. I actually think that this might be private, so you probably don't want to fish it. And then the last place in Wisconsin on the Pecatonica, Browntown, Wisconsin, there is a boat ramp on the Pecatonica right outside of Browntown, kind of like where Skinner Creek runs into the park. I don't know if I can find it on this map, but there is a Skinner Creek confluence here somewhere. I think it's like right outside the town of Browntown. It's like right outside the town of Browntown. Here it is, Skinner Creek. There's a parking lot here where the creek meets the river, and this kind of like platform here is a pretty good off of 11. You have to fish this when the water is higher. If the water is low, there's not going to be any fish there besides suckers. So that's all the basically spots I know on the Pecatonica from shore, from in Wisconsin. Like I said, most of the best areas to fish the Peck are actually in the lands of Illinois, and there's dangerous people there. No, I'm just kidding. I went to Illinois for college, so I know the secret handshake. But anyways, let's move on to the Crawfish River, the Crayfish River. So essentially, the fishing on the Crayfish River basically starts on Lazy Lake, and essentially Lazy Lake's private, but the spillway is not. And the spillway is like super, super, super shallow. So Falls River Dam, but you can catch pretty big pike in there, and there's smallies in there as well. Fall River Dam. Then you move downstream on the main branch of the river, and you come to Columbus Dam or Udi Dam. Now Udi Dam kind of sucks, honestly. I will say that Udi Dam kind of sucks. I have like gotten smallies up here in the pond. I know there's carp here up in the pond. There's also pike up in the pond. I've actually caught pike downstream from the dam as well. If the water is low, there's almost like no water in the dam, so it's not worth fishing. If it's high, like I've caught carp, there's definitely bullheads in the pools there. I don't think there's like channel catfish this far up the river yet, but definitely like pike and bass there as well. So way downstream from here, you have the Ashtego Park and boat ramp. So essentially, Ashtego Park and boat ramp, you can definitely fish off there. Ashtego is right above Danville, the mill pond here. So Ashtego, basically like there's an Ashtego Park bridge. Basically, there's a boat ramp here. There's a fishing ramp here as well, I believe, like right off here. So you can fish off there. The main target there would actually be pike. Danville Mill Pond is pretty good. It's called Jaeger Mill. It's technically private, but it's well known that it's a well-known fishing spot. The owner of the mill lets you fish there. Please clean up after yourself here. I don't like finding fishing line there. I don't like finding trash there. The local fishermen and people who visit this are generally pretty respectful, and they really don't like people. They don't really like people like leaving trash there. I really hate people leaving trash here too, because it is a very, very nice spot. So, but there's like pretty much everything that comes off from Koshkonong. I've caught flathead there. I've caught channels there. I've caught bass there. There's definitely pike there, and there's all sorts of fish at Danville Mill Pond. I won't say there's big fish at Danville Mill Pond because I've never actually caught anything big there, but there's an assortment of fish at Yahara Mill. That is like the first major dam on the Crawfish, and being the first major dam on the Crawfish, that is the end point of the migration for everything that comes up from Koshkonong. When the water's low, fishing can be pretty hard there, but when the water's high, it's actually pretty good. And surprisingly, there's not as many snags as at other dams there. The thing is, like, after that, you have to go way downriver, and you have to go to Dalman Road around Portland, Wisconsin. And this is actually a pretty good early season channel fishing spot. Later, like in the season, early season meaning April. In this case, like later in the year, you don't want to fish here because there's too many damn snapping turtles here, and they will eat all your bait no matter what you throw in the water. There's a lot of carp here. There's bowfin here. There's flatheads here, and there's channels here, and there's also like good game fish here. So this is like this little parking spot off Dalman Road, and the fishing spot's actually pretty here. It's pretty good, but like I said, a lot of turtles later on in the year, but very, very good early in the year. And of course, down from Dalman Road, there's like Mud Lake State. There's like the Mud Lake State Wildlife Area, and there is actually like a little parking spot right here. You can probably fish the crayfish from here. You can also fish from under this bridge if it isn't overgrown. But you can't actually get to Mud Lake because there's like, unless you really want to get like all soggy and wet and nasty and stuff, you don't really want to do that. But where you can get close to Mud Lake is actually the Crawfish River boat launch. Now, the boat launch, I'm about to post a video on this. Basically, like you can fish off the boat launch here, but the water's like very shallow here. There's like a trail that goes onto this spot right here. And off this point, like closer to your side of the river, there's like a 6-7 foot hole. Now, I say a hole at 6-7 feet. You guys are thinking, well, that's really shallow. It's actually really deep considering the rest of this like river at this point is like 2 feet deep. And I have caught flatheads, channels, carp, and also bass around here. So the Crawfish River boat launch at the Mud Lake area. This is where the Beaver Dam River comes into the Crawfish River. Also, like before that, there is the Menesha River confluence into the Crawfish, which is you can try fishing at the cemetery. I really wouldn't. I don't like fishing at cemeteries. But there's also the Menesha River confluence around Hubbleton Road. You see there's like a parking spot here. You want to come here either during the winter or early in the season. Late in the season, you can only fish in the area with the lily pads, and I don't really think that's actually worth fishing all that much. The main river, you can't get to it later in the season because it's so overgrown. But early in the season, before it becomes overgrown, you can actually like access this little area here. You might be able to access this little area here off this trail. So those would actually be really good areas to fish early in the season. So the Menesha River confluence on the crayfish. And the thing is, after the Beaver Dam confluence, there's the Hubbleton Road Highway 19. Hubbleton Road Highway 19 bridge right here in Hubbleton. The river does actually get pretty wide here. I've caught carp, bowfin. I know there's catfish there, and there's also white bass and other fish here. It is kind of an uncomfortable place to fish. You have to park over here and either fish on the rocks over here or fish on the rocks on either side. But there's good fish there as well at the Hubbleton Road. And of course, later on, way downstream, you come to like Astallan State Park. Now, Astallan, you can always fish from the boat ramp at any time, but the water's like super shallow off the boat ramp at Astallan. But I have caught drum and stuff there at the boat ramp at Astallan. There's also real like outside of the boat ramp. There is like a little spot over here somewhere that you can actually come down to the river, but it's super overgrown later in the season. If you go early in the season, you will probably just get carp because I've caught carp on pretty much every kind of bait there. I have caught catfish there and I have caught walleyes there too, but like the muddy bottom area, haven for carpios. So that is the Crawfish River. Obviously, there's the Crawfish Rock confluence at Jefferson as well. Now, speaking of which, let's get onto the rock. Now, before I go to the rock, I want to mention Cambridge, Wisconsin. That is the that is the best fishing spot along Koshkonong Creek, and it's actually the entrance into Camrock County Park. There's only one other crappy fishing place in Camrock, which I'm not going to mention because it's really under a bridge at Camrock, and it kind of sucks, honestly. Um, there's also a couple of fishing spots around London at Koshkonong Creek, but generally the best fishing area along Koshkonong Creek is this like Camrock Bike Park. Yeah, right here. There's like, and it's actually the canoe launch. You want to do this on a weekday because on the weekend, weekday night, because on the weekend, it's very busy with canoeists. You can catch some creek chub bait here. I've caught some small smallies here too, but on this boat launch, I've caught like good walleye and good catfish on this Camrock Park place. Now let's move on to the Rock River because that is a big river system. And the first place I want to mention on the Rock River is basically Horicon, the dam at Horicon. You can fish at Riverbend Park, Kiwanis Park, and all these other places at Horicon River. The Horicon Marsh, there's a couple of places you can fish along like the Marsh Road and like the Dam Road. But generally, I would say like you want to fish kind of like in downtown Horicon. And there is a dam somewhere in here. Like there's the Horicon Dam area. You can fish. I don't know if you can actually fish here. I think you can probably get down here, but I'm not really sure. But like downstream from the dam, you can definitely get to Kiwanis Park. You can get to Riverbend Park. And there are catfish and a lot of pike and bass here as well. So essentially Riverbend Park, definitely a good place. Downstream from here, you get to Lake Sinisippi. Now, Sinisippi, the lake itself, there's not that many access places on Sinisippi. There is this like Harvester Island kayak and canoe launch. You can definitely fish off there, and I'm almost sure I will actually fish off of here sometime sooner or later because I haven't really truly fished Sinisippi. I don't think there's any flatheads in Sinisippi. I only think there are channel gato fish in Sinisippi, but there's some pretty decent ones in the lake. I've caught stuff there, and also that I've also fished at Neater Park. There's a little bit of an access here as well. I've caught some catfish there as well. But the main star of Sinisippi is Fireman's Park and the area below the dam. And above and below the dam, there's buffalo, there's muskie, and there's all kinds of like fish, including a ton of bullheads and channel gato fish around this area. So that's Hustleford and Hustleford Dam. Lake Sinisippi as well. And then downstream from Sinisippi, you essentially have Watertown as the next stop. Now, Watertown is a very, very interesting place. It's actually quite a bit downstream from Sinisippi, but that is the next viable place, realistically, on the Rock River. And that's where flatheads really start appearing on the Rock River. Yeah, there might be one or two strays around Sinisippi or Horicon Marsh, but generally, like Watertown, Riverside Park, there's 3 dams in Watertown. And basically, like, behind the first dam, realistically, behind the first upstream dam is when flatheads really start appearing. You can obviously fish along almost like the entire stretch of Watertown, Riverside Park. Riverside Park's actually really, really good fishing at Watertown. You can also fish at Fannie Lewis Park on the Rock River. You can also fish, like, downstream from the dam. Basically South First Street Park, and also basically at Schaller Park as well. There's a lot of places to fish in Watertown, and there's several dams in Watertown. Flatheads, bass, carp, a lot of stuff at Watertown. One of the best fishing areas there is. And of course, downstream from Watertown, there's this place called Cappy's Landing. And that is actually a really, really good place as well. There's like some panfish in this pool, and there's definitely turtles here, but there are flatheads, there are carp around this area. You got to watch out for the turtles, especially later in the season at Watertown. Then downstream from Watertown, you have Johnson's Creek. I caught a pretty big flathead. I've caught several channels here. Basically, it's where Johnson's Creek runs into the Rock River. You have this Rock River park and boat launch. You can also have this on the other side of the river. You can pull out here, and where the creek runs into the river meets some deep water. There's definitely flatheads. There's channels. There's like crappies and other things there. All sorts of fish at Johnson's Creek. Downstream from Johnson's Creek, this is where you run into Jefferson. And I used to fish Jefferson a lot. I still do. Above the dam, below the dam is perfectly fine. Um, you can also fish at Rock River Landing Park. But below the dam, there's going to be quite a few channels and flatheads below the dam. You can fish on both sides of the dam, by the ways. And of course, above the dam, I've caught like catfish and drum there as well. Once again, the crawfish rock confluence is pretty good. A lot of turtles though, but flatheads and channels there. Also a lot of drum and carp, and you can actually fish this area. You used to be able to get on Goat Island, but I think the goats will basically team up now and eat you if you try to get on Goats Island. So don't do that. You can fish all around this bank as well in Jefferson. I actually fished this area at Tensfeld, right behind the Jefferson City wastewater treatment plant. There's a lot of debris and wood here, and I have caught channels and flatheads in this, like just downstream of the boat launch area, like in this place. You can't actually go into the wastewater treatment plant thing, but you can kind of toss towards that way, and it's actually a pretty good fishing thing. Now, there are like a ton of drum here, so you don't want to use worms. You will lose all your bait within seconds. But if you toss some cut bait here, you toss some live bait here, you will get a gato fish, either that or a turtle, because, you know, they're everywhere. And then going downstream from Jefferson, you run into Fort Atkinson. And Fort Atkinson's another really, really good place to fish. Basically, I would start with Fort Atkinson on Rock River Road, where the old bait shop used to be. They moved, but there used to be an old bait shop there. And essentially, like around this area, I think like slightly upstream from it, there's like a patch of public land, I believe. There's going to be a patch of public land. There is like a parking spot right there that like one of the guys told me about. There's definitely a parking spot right there that's like public land. And you can actually fish here. I've caught flatheads here, I've caught bowfin, I've caught channels there, and I've caught walleyes here as well. So very good there. Where the bark runs into the rock, that's public land as well. I've caught walleyes there, I've caught white bass there, I caught carp here as well. I'm pretty sure there is catfish here, but I think there's more gato fish like in this area. So, and there's some snags in this area as well. Moving downstream, you have Lorman Bicentennial Park, and also like across from Lorman Bicentennial, like this Water Department Services Center, you have this parking lot. You can actually fish off here too, and there's channel catfish there, but I've caught a lot of carp there as well. Lorman Bicentennial Park, everything pretty much on the Rock River, channels, flatheads, carp, everything else. Lorman Bicentennial. Sometimes there's a lot of people there at Lorman Bicentennial Park. And then later on, you have where the bait shop is now, bait box on the rock, and essentially like there's a lot of places you can actually get down to the river around here, and there's a lot of debris around here, so it's probably pretty good for flathead fishing. There's also a lot of bugs around here. So this area by the bait box, a lot of areas where you can actually kind of like get down to the river. You can also, I mean, like there's a couple of parking spots here and there as well along this area. You can kind of like park at like there's like random parking spots along the basically the Rock River Park area. And yeah, pretty good fishing along this area as well on Riverside Drive. And after that, you get to the Growler Road launch. You definitely get to the Growler Road launch. There's also the VFW Monument launch if you want to fish there. But the Growler Road launch is actually here off of Highway 26. And there's definitely some structure there. So you might actually want to fish around here. There's probably a couple of fallen trees there. So that would be an interesting place to check out. It will be probably pretty busy during the day, but at night you can definitely get some action there on that. Downstream from that, you have Black Hawk Island, where it flows into Lake Koshkonong. Now, finding the public access points here is actually pretty hard. You have basically this area here. I think like this area is sort of public. I've seen a lot of people fish here, and then like down here, very close to Lake Koshkonong, like I think like this area, there's like this landing. I think this is kind of public as well. One of these landings is public. There's a place to park there, and you can actually fish there as well. Lake Koshkonong essentially has no access, but you can fish pretty close to the Koshkonong access area. Downstream from Koshkonong, you run into Indian Ford, Rock River at Indian Ford Dam. And Indian Ford is a very busy location. Everyone fishes here. Basically, you can fish off on both sides. I prefer to fish off the rocks. It's slightly less crowded than the park over here. And there's channels and flatheads here. Also some bluegill here as well at Indian Ford. I've also caught walleye at Indian Ford as well. And there's definitely buffalo here as well. So Indian Ford Dam, definitely a great place to fish. I like it better when the water's high, but that's just kind of like personal preference for me. There's also this Rock River access area that you can actually fish on down. There's like this little road curb. I do think you can actually park here and fish. That is the Rock River access area. I haven't really tried this before, but I definitely do want to try this particular area. I think you can probably I think you can pull over here and fish on essentially like this little thing over here as well. So Rock River access area. And then downstream from that, you run into Janesville Park. Janesville. And Janesville is a really good fishing area. Obviously, you have the Riverside Park. And although I've caught a lot of eater channels, pound channels here, there is a lot of debris at Janesville, like a lot of like wood at Janesville. And people have caught monster flatheads there as well. Downstream from Riverside, you get to like Trexler Park. And Trexler is really good. I mean, people fish the lagoon, but I actually fish the river. Essentially, like this bridge area, I fish like this kind of like still water area. I've caught a lot of channel catfish here from shore. So Riverside and Trexler. There's also the old Monterey Dam, which is now actually destroyed. You can fish Janesville Central, but the current's super heavy there. Monterey Stadium, Monterey Park, whatever you call it. There's like a bunch of broken dams there. You can fish off of Big Rock as well. The water's super shallow there, but sometimes there are big flatheads around this area. And of course, Jeffries Park, you can fish kind of like this outlet as well. So that are the areas around Janesville. Also, like Lusteg Park, the river gets very, very narrow here, but if you can get on one of these sand islands, it's actually really good fishing. I've actually fished right off of Lusteg. I've caught catfish and carp around here. It doesn't look like there's an access spot, but there's actually an access spot here. There's nowhere to stake your poles though, so you might lose equipment there. And then after that, you have the Afton Boat Launch. I don't actually know where the Afton Boat Launch is, but it's somewhere down here. There's definitely an Afton Boat Launch here before you leave the city. And that place has some really good catfish as well. Then there is the Beloit. And after that, there's Happy Hollow. I've never had too much luck at Happy Hollow, except for catching a couple of drums. So kind of a hit and miss place, I guess. And then after Janesville, you get to Beloit. Now, Beloit, I think the best place is by far, like right beneath the dam. There are an assortment of fish here on the rocks beneath the dam. Channels, flatheads, carp, buffalo, game fish, pretty much everything beneath the dam. And then that's going to be the end of the Rock River because right like about a mile after the dam, you basically have the Wisconsin-Illinois line. You can actually fish on the Illinois side at Nature at the Confluence, but that's in the lands of Illinois, and that could get a little sticky if you don't have an Illinois license. So let's move on to the Wisco River. And we're going to start up at Castle Rock Dam. Castle Rock Dam Bait Shop. I actually haven't fished Castle Rock Lake itself, and I haven't fished Petenwell. And like I consider Castle Rock Lake and Petenwell like central Wisconsin. So Castle Rock Dam is where I start, southern Wisconsin. If you fish off the boat launcher, you can get into deeper water. There's people definitely fish for muskie there. If you fish where this creek comes in, throw out into the abyss here. There are catfish, there's big flatheads, there's channels, there's carp, there's a lot of carp here, and there's walleyes as well. So Castle Rock Dam, there is a bait shop there. So you basically can buy bait at the bait shop and fish at Castle Rock Dam. Pretty good place. Downstream from Castle Rock, you get into Wisconsin Dells. And basically the Upper Dells has some good places, but where I actually fish, I'll update the list with Upper Dells, and I'll probably do a guide for the Upper Dells sooner or later as well, because it is actually a pretty good place to fish on the Upper Dells. But the first major place I fish is Kilbourne Dam, right off Finnegan Road, and there's actually an entry parking spot here off of Finnegan. You can get on this beach, and basically you just toss the other way because the deeper water is actually on the other side of the river on the Wisco. And you can also fish here by kind of like this ramp thing here. If you fish by this ramp, there's a lot of turtles. There's some buffalo and stuff there. If you fish here at night, there's flatheads. I've caught big flatheads here. There's also muskie, bass, and a ton of drum, which is why sacrifice drum to the elder catfish gods is actually the best bait you can actually get for flatheads. I've also caught channel catfish here. So Kilbourne Dam. Downstream from Kilbourne, you have Newport Park. Newport Park, I've caught numerous small flatheads here. There's also like good smallmouth bass coming out of this creek here. There's tons of drum, and I've caught a lot of white bass and walleye here, like in September, October area. There's also a Lake Delton Dam over here, and yeah, there's catfish here. There's bowfin here, and during season there's also walleye here, and you can also catch a lot of smallmouth here too. So Lake Delton Dam, very very good. So downstream from the Wisconsin Dells, there's this thing called Levee Road, and there's several access spots on Levee Road. But the one I tend to fish on Levee Road, coming up from Portage, is, let me actually look at the Levee Road area. It's quite a bit downstream. It's downstream from the Pine Island area, so like there's also a Pine Island boat landing. You can definitely fish here. There's probably some pretty good fish here as well. I haven't really tried fishing that area, by the way. It's the Pine Island boat landing, but you can definitely fish there. But on Levee Road, when you go all the way down closer to Portage, I would say there are two pretty good. There are actually two like really really good areas coming out from Portage. It's after the 39 crossing. And if you actually look at Levee Road, it's right there. There's one parking spot there, one parking spot there. Fishing off here with the trail here. This is mainly like catfish area, channels and flatheads. And basically, if you come up to these rocks here, it's mainly smallmouth bass. So that's the Levee Road areas on Levee Road. And then getting into Portage, you have Sunset Park here. And there is like an abandoned boat ramp here. You can fish like all along Sunset Park. You want to fish this when the water's high. There's pretty good flathead action here when the water's high. There's also like walleye and other stuff here. Basically outlet of the creek into the main Wisconsin River at Sunset Park. And then Paquette Park, you can fish under the bridge. The pond here probably has a lot of bass. I haven't really ever fished the pond, but essentially like you can also fish under the bridge. I've also fished the other side on the bridge because there's like a DNR thing here. It kind of sucks. But Paquette Park is probably pretty good, but I prefer Sunset Park as well. There's also this like path that you can take over here, and basically like there's spots in the Wisconsin you can fish here that are probably pretty good as well. I haven't fished those areas though. And then going down from Portage, you have Lake Columbia. Columbia has pretty good flathead. There's a ton of like really really small channel gato fish here. There's definitely a lot of really small channel catfish here. But there are pretty good flathead catfish fishing places here as well. Now, the thing is there's a parking spot here, and some people fish right off the parking spot. I walked a little bit down, I fish here. I've caught flatheads here in the winter. Lake Columbia, until the winter of 2024, is going to be heated, so you can actually fish Columbia in the winter, and I've caught flathead. That's where I go to catch flatheads in the winter, at Lake Columbia. So after Columbia, you come to Decorah. Now, Decorah, there's Decorah Park, and there's actually a secluded beach over here besides Decorah Park when the water is lower. There's a stream that comes in that cuts it off, and I've caught channel catfish there, walleye, rock bass, and things like that. I'm pretty sure there are flatheads there. I think I hooked into one. I just didn't bring them up. So, and I don't think there's that many turtles there. So like it's where the deep water cuts off the shallow water. There is a powerful current there, and that's where you want to toss at Decorah Park. A couple of miles down the road, at the other part of Decorah, basically Camp Rest Park, the boat launch there, and the park there. Very very shallow here, but pretty good smallie action like early season. And of course, there's two boat launches downstream from Camp Rest. There's one at Saddle Road Launch. And, you know, like I've caught a lot of baitfish there, a lot of drum there. And I've also caught a catfish there as well. And the other one is Cope's Landing Access. It's like half a mile downstream, maybe like a quarter of a mile downstream. The current's stronger there, but I think there's pretty good action there. There's definitely like at the second boat launch at Corpse Landing Access, there's a big 20-foot hole in the middle. And there's definitely channels and flatheads there as well. But they're kind of like in this other part of Decorah, slightly down from Camp Rest Park. And there's other boat launch areas here. So like on the fingers, what people call the fingers, there is like a boat launch access area here. Not exactly sure where it is, but there is like, I think it's like Linda Circle. Like I think it's like right there. See, I think that's public property here. The rest of this is private. I think like this is public property. And essentially like there's a boat launch there and you can fish for panfish there on Lake Wisconsin. And you can also fish at the Oki boat launch. If you're fishing at Oki though, I would actually warn you that it's pretty crowded. You'll have to watch for boats all the time. I don't fish at the Oki a lot, but you can fish at the Oki boat launch. Um, of course, there's also Whalen Bay, and this is actually up here. And you can either fish into the bay or fish into the lake. There's flatheads here. There's white bass. There's walleyes here. So Whalen Bay, pretty good. And Oki access is the Oki access is okay as well. I think this is the Oki access here. You can also fish on like this strip right here. That's the Fits on the Lake strip. You want to fish like where the County Road V is because that's where the deep water is. And there's always a lot of boats there, so I don't like to go there a lot. But there is like walleye and like game fish there as well. So moving on from there, you have the Merrimack Landing Terminal, and I fish here a lot. Later in the summer, there's definitely white bass and walleye here when the minnows really come in. But generally, I come here to fish for the giant carp and buffalo, and I've caught several of them here right at this fishing dock, a little bit away from the ferry. Across, you have Merrimack Memorial Park. I've fished here multiple times. I've caught sturgeon, channels. People have said they've caught flatheads here. I've never caught one. I've also caught a crappie there. People say sometimes in the summer, crappie's really good there. I've never had like a crappie day there, but generally I bottom fish for. I've caught walleye, flat channels, and a lot of drum, and also sturgeon at Merrimack Memorial Park. There is also the Sunset Bay boat launch here later on, like Sunset Harbor. I think like Sunset Bay boat ramp. Once again, very, very crowded boat ramp, very, very busy. And you're going to have to watch out. You're definitely going to have to watch out for boaters here trying to offload during the day. So I don't really go there to fish all that much, but it is a possible access place. Moving up on the other side, you have Moon Valley. I will say Moon Valley is probably like, in terms of, Moon Valley, like in terms of the boat ramp and how busy it is, the boat like it's really like one of the most fished places in Wisconsin. You can also fish Gallus Slough, which is less crowded. It's one of the most fished places on Lake Wisconsin, so I don't go here to fish a lot just because there's always someone there. But it's not a bad place for panfish and a couple of other fish as well. You also have a little bit up the river, and this like little known place, the Summer Oak Cove boat ramp here. So the boat ramp here is pretty good. I've caught a lot of big channels off here. There's also like perch. There's also like bluegills here for bait, drums, carp. I haven't really caught and smallmouth bass. So there's a mix of everything at this boat launch here, and you can catch it right off the boat launch using worm bottom bait. I've never had too much luck jigging I mean, I've actually had luck fishing worm under bobber, but not with any of my lures. But Summer Oak boat ramp. After that, going downstream, there's the VFW Park. Actually, no, let's actually take there's the Prairie du Sac Dam. Can't really miss the dam. Later in the summer, starting in mid-August, I would think, there's a lot of shad that come in. You want to fish this when the water's higher. If the water's low, you will pretty much get snagged every single time, and you will not want to fish here. But when the water's like semi-high or high, there's a lot of shad that come into the shallows. Catch those shad with a landing net. You can't use cast nets in Wisconsin. Toss them back out into the Wisconsin, and you can get pretty big walleye there. I've caught catfish here though, but there's not really any like huge catfish here. And then you have the VFW park. I don't really like fishing here, but people have caught like smallies here as well. There's also the Highway 60 bridge. You can fish on both sides. And fish here, I've caught small catfish, I've caught decent walleye, I've caught a lot of sturgeon and drum here as well. And there's also, I've seen muskies in the water, so that's a pretty good place. There's also like this kind of like, I think there is this like, if you're willing to walk like a mile this way, there is kind of like this point area you can actually fish off of here. And if you fish off of here, there are actually muskies in this area. There's like a big hole here somewhere, and there's muskies in that area. So moving down there, there is Sauk City. I don't like fishing. I have fished in Sauk City. I've caught drum and walleye here. But there's a lot of gar here in the summer. You can fish off like this area, Pickles Place. You can launch off here and off this side. Not a huge fan of this. There's a lot of like gar here, and they will steal my bait. But the good place to fish here is this like trailhead endpoint for the Great Sauk Trail Rail, and that is like where you actually kind of like launch into the Wisconsin. There's a big hole like right here, and there are flatheads. There's other channel catfish, bass, walleye, whatever here. So fishing in this big hole, pretty good idea. Best if you can actually kind of like get on the island here, but I don't think you really can. There's no road there. So essentially, like fish the abandoned railroad bridge. That's a very popular and very good spot on the Wisconsin. Downstream, you have Arena Landing. You can fish at the Sauk Prairie Canoe Launch, but not a great place in my opinion. I mean, I have caught like drum there. I've caught small catfish there, but the gars once again steal all my bait. So not a big fan of that. Downstream, you do actually have Mesomani Landing as well. You can fish here. And Arena Landing, I think, is a little bit better downstream. So those are places you can fish, and obviously you can catch anything that's on the Wisconsin at those places. And of course, if you want bait for the Wisconsin River, you have to fish for bait at a connected creek on the lower Wisconsin. Black Earth Creek is actually a pretty good place to fish for Wisconsin river bait. Or you can just catch the little shiners on the Wisconsin as well. Note on the lower Wisconsin, you cannot net minnows and use minnows on the lower Wisconsin. So after Arena Landing, there's Peck's Landing on the Wisconsin, but this area is actually really busy in the summer because it's not only a fishing spot, it's also a very nice beach. It's a great beach on the Wisconsin River. You can actually fish on both sides of the bridge, and there's catfish, and stuff there. There are a decent amount of gar there. So if you use cut bait, they will probably take it. And of course, you have the Otter Creek boat launch. And this is one place in the lower Wisconsin where I've never actually had gar issues, but it's really on and off. You want to fish it when the water's higher. But I've caught catfish, bowfin. I've had a really big flathead bite in this area as well, but I didn't manage to pull it up, unfortunately. And you can also fish like kind of like the boat ramp Otter Creek. I think there's a lot of fallen wood here, and then I would actually toss like a bait there, and I'm pretty sure you might be able to catch some catfish here. So Otter Creek boat landing. That does it for the Wisconsin for me because I don't really fish past Lone Star. So I basically fish from Castle Rock to Lone Star in the Wisconsin. So let's go to the Baraboo River. And I only really fish the lower Baraboo. I don't really fish the upper Baraboo. I know like I've covered Lake Redstone before, but we will start our journey at North Freedom because everyone loves Freedom. So like North Freedom is a pretty good access spot. I really wouldn't fish like this area with a boat launch. Like fish a little bit over here in these trees. I've definitely caught a lot of channel guthelfish there. So pretty good channel catfish place. Downstream you have Geese Park or however you pronounce it. And Geese Park, the water is actually quite deep here. There are a lot of turtles here, but it's a canoe launch. But I have caught a ton of channel catfish here, including a pretty big one. There's also walleye and bass here as well. Basically, downstream from Geese Park, you have downtown Baraboo, and you have places like Haskins Park. Now, if you go to Haskins Park, you probably want to fish under the bridge. I've actually been meaning to do this for a while. You want to fish under the bridge here. Pretty strong current, but overall, like not a bad fishery area. By the way, the current goes towards the bridge, so there's definitely some good, like small flatheads there, not big ones, but like also drum, walleye, and stuff like that. Also, the Baraboo River, at all these places, there are smallmouth bass. And after Haskins Park, you have Ochsner Park and Atteridge Park. Now, you can access the Baraboo at any of these places. I think Ochsner Park, the access areas around here, especially the rapids, pretty good for smallmouth bass around here. Baraboo is definitely better when the water's higher. Lower Ochsner Park, definitely like some good smallmouth opportunities as well. And then I actually like to fish on the Riverwalk. I think there's some good access spots on the Riverwalk that you can actually fish. And Stats Park is actually pretty good as well. I fished here as well, caught some flatheads, caught some drum. That's about it at Stats Park. The Baraboo is generally pretty shallow and fairly narrow. You can also fish here. There's like a parking lot here, and you can actually get down to around the Spirit Point area, I think. And that actually might be a pretty good fishing spot on the rocks. Might be a little dicey though. So on the Baraboo River, that is the downtown Baraboo spots. So essentially, like downstream from downtown Baraboo, you have Glenville Landing. Glenville Landing does have gato fish. You want to fish Glenville once again when the water is a little bit higher, and essentially like there is some debris here. I think I hooked into a flathead once, but I didn't pull it up. But there's definitely channels there. There's suckers there, and there's walleye there. There's pretty good walleye at Glenville Landing, and they will actually bite your worms. Downstream from Glenville Landing, way downstream, you have the County Road W landing on the Baraboo. Now, you pretty much have to fish this when the water's high. If the water is low, there's actually no point at all in fishing the County Road W landing. It's actually kind of a weird place to fish. I'm not a huge fan of this spot, but if the water is low, there's only like really, really tiny gato fish when the water's low. But you will want to fish the County Road W landing when the water's actually very, very high. The County Road W landing. Downstream from that, there's only really like one more access spot on the Baraboo, and it's probably it is probably the best place on the Baraboo. It's across from this BP, and it's very, very close. It's actually like very, very close to where the Baraboo confluences with the Wisconsin. Actually, that's not the. It's actually not the Wayside Park I'm talking about. But there is a Wayside Park like near Portage. I think it's this one. No, like there's some like weird Wayside Park. There's a Wayside Park near Portage. Where the Baraboo, here it is, where the Baraboo the Baraboo almost runs to Wisconsin. It's very close to where 90 and 94 crosses the Baraboo. So you basically have the Wayside Park, and you fish over here for some bait, either really small channels, like 5-inch channels, or like bluegills here. You toss them over here on this like little slit downstream towards the logs, and I have caught a 22-pound flathead catfish there. Not too much for game fish, but suckers are there, bluegills, channels, and flatheads on this Wayside Park. It's next to Cascade Mountain. Let's actually go to the Fox River North. There's 2 Fox Rivers. We're going to talk about the northern one. And in terms of like southern Wisconsin, Montello is the place I would tell you to go. Montello Dam has a variety of fish, including big flatheads. I've caught channels there. I've caught channels here. I've seen big flatheads here, and there's also bass and bluegill here. Bluegill uses bait, and there's also bass here as well on Montello. From here, the Fox River kind of flows towards Green Bay, so that gets into more northern Wisconsin fishing. On the Fox River South, which is you start at downtown Waukesha. The Fox River North and the Fox River South are 2 different rivers. So there's obviously the Waukesha Dam and downtown Waukesha, and I mean like the dam essentially has like bullheads, it has like bowfins, and actually like and downtown Waukesha honestly has some pretty good panfish as well. But there's also Fox River Park. There's really big panfish at Fox River Park. There's bowfins there, there's carp there, and there's channel catfish there. I've caught here, Fox River Park. Pretty decent place to fish. I actually lost my footage of me fishing here, so that's what kind of sucks. And then after that, you have way far downstream, you have the Big Bend Village Park in Big Bend. There's pretty big channel gato fish here, and there's actually a really wide area of fishing at Big Bend Park. So check it out. Park Boat Landing. Pretty good place to fish. Downstream from this, you get into Burlington, and you actually have Echo Park. Well, actually, no. Before that, you have the Tishigan. You actually have the Tishigan Lake Public Boat Launch. This is where you can actually sort of access Tishigan, but not really. But you can fish at the Tishigan Boat Launch. Not really a recommended place, but definitely like something that you might actually want to look at if you're really interested in fishing Lake Tishigan. Tishigan has some pretty good channels. Tishigan actually has some pretty good channels. You also have Waterford. There is Village Hall Park right under the dam, and there's definitely some good catfish there as well. So Village Hall Park, and then you have River Bend Park as well, 10 Club Park. You can actually fish a lot of places at Waterford as well. So that's actually like the Fox River around the Waterford area. And then like you get into Burlington, you can actually fish at Pioneer Park as well, but or the Chase Eagle Park. But realistically, I actually like Echo Park, and that's actually on the White River. But Echo Park, I mean, like you want to fish it when the water's high. When the water's low, there's no water there, and there's pointless to fish there. There's flatheads, there's channels, and there's carp, and there's obviously also bluegill there. So kind of like Echo Veteran Memorial Park, and then like Weemoff Euchre Park is where the fox and the white actually meet. And obviously there's flatheads, channels, yellow bass, white bass, and other like smallmouth bass as well, where the fox meets the white. But the thing is, you really need to fish this when the water's a little higher. If the water's really low, there's like basically no water there. It's like 2 feet deep, and you will only get sheepheads there, unfortunately, in that case. So downstream, so like upstream from that, there's also Rochester Dam. That's when below the dam is where flatheads really start appearing. So downstream from, there's also like Fox River County Park. There's also like Fox River County Park and Boat Launch. Basically, yeah, like this is like way down. This is kind of like a little bit. Actually, this is like downstream from Burlington. This is like getting into the Wilmot area where the river actually does get a little deeper. So the Fox River County Park boat landing, not too bad of a place. You can also fish under the bridge, channels, flatheads, and other stuff there as well. And of course, there's Wilmot Canoe Launch, and that is like pretty much the last place you will actually get before you actually get into the lands of Illinois. Wilmot Canoe Launch, that's the state line right there. So essentially the canoe launch is right here. It has some rapids here. Might be a pretty good place to catch some channels and or flathead guttlefish. So other stuff that's not on the major rivers. Lodi Spring Creek actually is pretty good. And there's a small spillway in Lodi. I can't really find it on the map, but there's a small spillway in Lodi, and I've actually caught saugers there. There's definitely trout in that stream, and there's probably some creek chubs in there as well. Like I said, I'm not going to go over Madison Ponds because I already went over it in the other video. I'll pin that in the comments. Also, there is Beaver Dam Park, and the spillway there, that's in downtown Beaver Dam. I've actually fished that place. It's pretty good. There's definitely carp, buffalo. There's definitely like carp, buffalo. Yeah. Outside of that, there's like carp, buffalo, and channels there. There are no flatheads there, unfortunately. And I've actually fished the Beaver Dam Park as well. So Edgewater Park I've fished. There's definitely channel catfish. Like there's like 1 or 2 pound channel catfish all in Beaver Dam Lake. But a lot of people fish downtown Beaver Dam. Especially the spillway and like the bridge spillway. There's a lot of fish there. There's also muskies there. So you have Beaver Dam, spillway, and lake. You also have in Milwaukee, you also have like Grant Park and like Lakeshore. And those pools actually have really good brown trout, like big brown trout, outlying brown trout. And you also have Chinook salmon there. Aside from that, you have Birch Lake near Mount Horeb in Barnveld, and there are small pike in there. There's also bass in there too. You also have that lake. I forgot exactly what it was called. Let me actually check. You also have that lake in Mount Horeb. Yes, you also have Stewart Lake. There's a lot of bluegills in there. I've caught some shiners in there, like big shiners. And there's also some bass and pike in there if you get lucky. So there's Stewart Lake. And down more south, there's Cadiz Springs. Now, Cadiz is a really, really good place if you're actually wanting to catch bass. Beckman Lake has a lot of big bass, especially around the lily pads, the swimming area, and also like off this area here. And there's tiger muskies in there too, although I've never actually caught one. There's also Yellowstone Lake State Park, but the Yellowstone Dam is like so crowded that you just don't really want to go there on the weekend. But there's some pretty good catfish, carp, and bass in the lake itself. So very, very, very nice at Yellowstone Lake. And like one of the hidden gems here is the Mineral Point Spillway. So there's a little town called Mineral Point in Wisconsin, and there's actually like a dam. There's actually like a Mineral Point, the Mineral Point Spillway here. I know it's a Mineral Point somewhere. I don't exactly know where the dam actually is. There's a little creek that issues from here. Oh, here it is. Loudon Lake Spillway is what it's called. And there's actually a spillway here. So the weird thing is, like, kids actually use this spillway. Kids actually use the Loudon Lake Spillway for kind of like a water slide in the summer. The spillway is actually here. Like, kids actually use this as a spillway in the summer. The spillway is at most like 5 foot deep. But the spillway has some really good walleye, it has some good bass, and it has like decent amount of catfish in there too as well. So Loudon Lake Spillway, pretty good. Let's actually talk about the place I went there like last week, the Rome Spillway in Rome, Wisconsin. Rome Feed Mill. If you fish this area, essentially like the Rome Spillway Feed Mill area, if you fish the dam itself, there's probably like bass and pike sometimes. This area here has pike and bass and carp as well. There's a lot of carp. And basically, but downstream from the feed mill, like on this little island thing right here, I've caught plenty of catfish right here. So that is the Rome area. So that's going to be all we cover here. I think there were like 150 spots. I will keep adding to the list. I'll make extra videos as I see fit. So we've covered a huge amount of spots here. I know this video was long, but you know, I might make some timestamps soon. So essentially, we covered Madison, the Sugar River, the Menesha River, the Rock River, the Crawfish, the Wisconsin River, the Baraboo River, the Fox Rivers, and a lot of other good stuff. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button, and I will see you guys later.